Hello, hello. The topic of today's lesson is word problems. Word problems specifically about fractions. Very difficult in Singapore math. That's why we go step by step, analyzing and using simple drawings they call bar models. Very simple drawings to represent parts, different parts. So let's start with a word problem. Jim had 360 stamps. He sold 1/3 of them on Monday and 1/4 of the remainder on Tuesday. How many stamps did he sell on Tuesday? I want you to note that let's do the three W's: who, what, and why. Of course, the problem is talking about Jim and his stamps. It's talking about his stamps. And what do we know about Jim's stamps? Well, on Monday, he sold 1/3 of 360, correct? He sold 1/3 of 360. So 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, right? 1/3, another 1/3, another 1/3. And what happened to 1/3? It was sold on Monday, right? Monday. 1/3 of 360. I hope you're beginning to see where I'm getting at. We understand that 1/3 of 360 is actually 120, right? Each of these units is 120 stamps. Good. What happened on Tuesday? Well, 1/4 of the remainder, not 1/4 of 360, 1/4 of the remainder. Well, let's take a look. What was remaining? What was remaining after Monday sales? 2/3. Do you see? 2/3, 120, 120. We know that on Tuesday, after Monday, we had 240 stamps remaining. And what happened to those 240 stamps? 1/4 of them was sold. So we have 1/2, 1/4, and another quarter, right? So 1/4 of the remainder, 1/4 of the remainder, another quarter of the remainder, another quarter of the remainder, another quarter of the remainder. My friends, this is a multi-step word problem. Let's begin. Step 1. So how many stamps did he sell on Tuesday? So this is the question, right? So step 1. First of all, what happened on Monday? Of course, we know 1/3 of 360 was sold, and that's 120 stamps. Step 2, that's Monday, right? Monday. What happened next? Well, we can say 360 minus 120, which we already see from the drawing, is 240. That's the part that was remaining. And what happened to this 240 stamps? 1/4 of remaining 240 was sold on Tuesday, which is the same as 60 stamps, right? Same as 60 stamps. Not bad, right? Not bad. We can mark this, that 1/4 was 60, and of course each quarter was 60, 60. And if the problem later asks how many stamps were left, we know 180 stamps would be left over. So these are multi-step problems, and the best strategy to solve them is to make a simple drawing. Let's move on. Let's move on. There's so many methods that this book presents, but I would like to I would like to stick to one method because it's very obvious. Word problems and bar models are super good together. Let's look at problem number 1. I'm on the following page. Marisol made 300 tarts. She sold 3/4 of them and gave 1/3 of the remainder. 1/3 of the remainder to her neighbor. How many tarts did she have left? Well, let's go step by step. Who, what, and why? The three W's. Of course, the problem is talking about Marisol, and it's talking about her tarts, right? What do we know about Marisol tarts? Her tarts. She started with 300. What happened to them? She sold 3/4. Well, let's go. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So we have 4/4. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And what happened? 3/4 were sold. 3/4 of 300 was sold, right? Sold. Then what happened? 1/4 was left. And what happened to that 1/4? We know 1/4 of the remainder, right? 1/4 is the remainder. This is the remainder. Let me label it. Remainder, right? What happened to it? They took the remainder and she split it into 3 equal parts like this, right? And she gave away 1/3 to the neighbor, right? Let's label it. This went to the neighbor. This is another third and another third that was left for Marisol. The question is, how many tarts did she get back? Did she keep? So again, it's at least a two-step problem. Let's go. Step 1. There's so many different ways to look at it, but I would say if 3/4, right? 1/2 minus 3/4 gives you 1/4, and that remained after sales. What happened to this 1/4? Well, we can first figure out, well, how many tarts? 1/4 of 300 is 75 tarts. What happened to the 75 tarts? Here they are, 75 tarts, right? T for tarts. What happened to 75 tarts? 1/3 was given to the neighbor, which means 2/3 were kept. What is 2/3 of 75? Let's go. That's a fraction times mixed number. Let's simplify before we multiply. 1 unit, right? This is 25, 25, 25. And of course, 2 of those units Marisol kept, which means she kept 50 tarts. She kept 50 tarts to herself, okay? And that is the answer to problem number 1. Now, let's continue to problem number 2. Mr. Anderson gave 2/5 of his money to his wife and spent 1/2 of the remainder. Again, 1/2 of the remainder, not the starting amount of whatever was left after he gave away. Reading comprehension is important. If he had 300 left, how much money did he have at first? So we want to find out how much money did he have before he started giving away. So let's go step by step. Mr. Anderson gave 2/5 of his money to his wife. Okay, so this is 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5. So this is 2/5, and that was given to wife. Which means another step 1, right? 1/2 minus 2/5 gives you 3/5. And that's the fraction that he had left. Well, what happened to that part? What happened is he took this 3/5 and split it into 2 equal parts, right? Let's use this purple. And he took, so this is the 3/5 that Mr. Anderson had left, and he split it into 2 parts, and he spent it, right? So this part he spent, and this part he kept. And we know that whatever he kept was $300. My friends, just by looking at the drawing, we know that if he was left with $300, that means he also spent $300, right? Because we know it was a half, which means that this is the portion of his money, $600, that was left after he gave away to his wife. $600 is 3 units. 3 units, which means each of those units is $200, right? 200, which means every one of those units is $200. Therefore, Mr. Anderson at first had 200 times 5 units. He started with $1,000, okay? $1,000. But let's look at it from the perspective of fractions. Let's continue. Let's go back and continue with my original solution. Okay, let's go back. So, Mr. Anderson gave 2/5 of his money to his wife and spent half of the remainder, which means 3/5 was remainder. What happened to those 3/5? Well, what happened is a half of it, right? So we can say that 3/5 times a half. That gives us 3 out of 10 equal parts. And that's the part he saved and he kept, right? Half, kept, okay? So this $300 is the same as 3 units out of 10. If 300 is 3 units, that means each unit is 100, okay? That means 1 unit equals 300 divided into 3 equals $100. And finally, if they're total 10 units, 100 times 10 gives you $1,000, which is the same answer we arrived at earlier. My friends, you can use steps of fractions. You can also use bar models. I highly encourage you using bar models. Let's continue. Problem number 3. Sean had a piece of string 4.5 meters long. He used 4.5 meters. That's a beautiful mixed number, right? 4.5 meters. He used 1/3 of it to tie a box. Find the length of the string. Well, in order to find 1/3 of anything, we just multiply, correct? So mathematically, we would say 4.5 times 1/3. How do we multiply mixed number by fraction? Well, step 1. Let's convert mixed number to its improper equivalent. Gives us 9/2 times 1/3. Simplify before you multiply. And the answer is 3 out of 2, which is 1.5 meters. So he used 1.5 meters to tie a box. Okay? He used 1.5 meters to tie a box. And this is what we did, right? In method 2, we just converted this to 9/2 times 1/3, and we arrived to 1.5 meters. My friends, the final problem is Kelly. Kelly, oh, it got cut off, but that's okay. Let me just say number 4. Kelly had 2 3/4 of cooking oil. She used 2/5 of it to deep fry some fish. How much oil did she use? In order to find 2/5 of a quantity, we simply multiply, right? So we have 2 3/4, and we need to find 2/5 of it. 2/5. How do we multiply in proper mixed numbers? Step 1, let's convert them. 2 times 4. So we have 11/4 times 2/3. And again, let's simplify just to make our math easier and get into a good habit. Let's simplify before we multiply. We get 11 out of 6, which is the same as 1 5/6 of a quart of oil. That's how much Kelly used to fry some fish. I hope you found this lesson